how to protect yourself from unwanted situations, people, scenarios, and circumstances. Notice that I'm not really valorizing the quality of the situation itself. I'm just saying unwanted. So what can be wanted for another person may be undesirable for you. So it's not about talking down somebody else or pointing out the flaws that we think objectively they have, because at the end of the day we cannot help that. But it's about seeing how their flaws, or the flaws of any given situation, also like a job or something, go into what we want from our lives. And most of us are born completely enmeshed and brought up very closely and forcibly among the unwanted formats of relationships that come from the family model, or even from the environmental schooling model that we receive as children. Most of us, one way or another, are on this earth because we experience the unwanted, the incompatible. And the trickiest part is to deal with those parts that we are so used to, we don't even question them. When the unwanted happens early enough in your life, you tend to take it for granted, and you tend to think that it's something that is socially acceptable, that is acceptable in your own personal life, and then you grow up to find out that, whoops, it was not necessarily the best thing, if you know what I mean, or as in it's completely not what I wanted. So you have to first get out of that comfort zone in your head of thinking that just because things were a certain way for you growing up, wherever that format was, doesn't mean that your whole life has to go this way. You are allowed to completely redefine and reconstruct who you want to be, if that's what is necessary to bring you towards what actually works for you. That's the only thing that actually matters, what works for you. And in truth, you can't really form positive relationships or even help anyone if something is not working for you, because relationships are reciprocal. So if you're with somebody and they're not treating you well, then it doesn't really benefit them at the end of the day. It's not good for their growth either. So in this way, even if you put yourself in the so-called victim position, you also are part of the problem, because at some point, even if you're not the one who is the outward attacker, you need to ask yourself about what you actually prioritize and what are you encouraging or endorsing by allowing certain situations to happen or not speaking up. And many times we suffer a lot because we don't understand that the universe is sending us the unwanted to point at these parts of us that need change. And very often we might think, well, by myself I am just doing so fine when I'm alone, but then it's this person's fault. And you know what, maybe it is, but they are still in your life, right? No one is forcing you to keep them in your life long term, or to choose situations like this. So while of course you may fairly logically assign responsibility where it's due, you should also take responsibility for yourself in such a way that you should answer the question for yourself of what in me makes me return to these kind of situations. Why do I attract people who behave like that towards me? What kind of unconscious allowance do I have towards things that are not functioning and not working for me? And what do I want to do instead? And in fact, you will keep receiving these kind of situations until you understand that is not what you want, or that there are certain things that you can't tolerate. what I can tell you that can be very scary after this is the feeling of void, because when we grow up with negative attachments towards negative patterns, we think that's what connection is. We think that's what closeness is. We think that's what family is. We think that's what love is. We think that's what marriage is, or even raising our own children. And then letting go of that model makes us feel like there's a void and nothing else waiting for you. Because the way you were raised was, well, either you do this or you have nothing else around you because you are reliant on your parents, teachers, caregivers. But adulthood is freeing in such a way that it gives you the possibility to wander around and explore something which you don't have as a child, that freedom to take control of your life and redefine yourself that you haven't had when you were dependent on other people as a baby. The thing is that if you stay in this pattern and you never ask yourself the right questions, you will not be able to actually have anything new, because this is what happens inside your head. You stay closed in thinking, this is what I know, this is what life is, and there's nothing more that I can get. But how will you ever get anything more if this is what you tell yourself and this is the kind of choice that you keep making for yourself? To give you an example, when I was younger, I thought the only way to make friends and to meet new people is to meet them through school or work environments. And that's where the bulk of my first friendships came from. We met at school when we were teenagers and children. But of these friendships, I only have a couple left, honestly. And even though we were thrown into the same school environment, that didn't mean they were necessarily compatible as people. And that was a very, again, big point of detachment for me, having to understand that just because someone was put in your neighborhood, or just because someone was put in the same vicinity as you, doesn't mean that they necessarily will have that effect of you two giving each other what you want in a connection, whether it be friendship or something else. Same with similar interests. I thought also that people with similar interests are those who could fill that gap. But alas, something that I've learned being a spiritual teacher and being in the astrology community is that there are plenty of those in those communities who have personalities that do not agree with my views or even the way of approaching the subject at all. I guess that was a bit of naive of me, because it's like saying all doctors should be friends when it's a bit narrow-minded. But you get my point. There is an element of unpredictable about the kind of person you can actually end up working with, but all you have to do is be open and analyze in the moment what actually works, and you have to be willing to do it over and over and over again for the rest of your life. No one said it was gonna be easy.